Hey, everybody, welcome back. I mentioned earlier this week that I was going to have a whole bunch of live streams this week. In fact, over the next few weeks, you're going to see more and more of them because these folks all signed up for the tax refund Kindle cross promotion campaign. I love this name. My assistant, Paya, came up with it. She said, if you can sell couches and cars with a tax sale, why can't we sell discounted Kindle books? So if you're an author, you should go to bizbookpubhub.com to find out how to sign up by the 9th for the next Kindle cross promotion campaign, or join you can always join the waitlist for the one that comes after that in July, then November. Without any further delay, let me introduce this week's program. You didn't write your book just to check a box. You wrote it because you have something important to say, something that will outlast a single post, a single talk, or even a single launch. A book is a legacy building tool. It crystallizes your expertise, your message, and your unique lens in the world in a way that no other medium can. And when it's done right, it opens doors, not just for your business today, but for the reputation and body of work you'll be known for tomorrow. That's why I support entrepreneurs through their entire author journey, because writing and publishing are only the beginning. When you leverage your book as the foundation for your bigger mission, everything changes. I'd love to help you think long-term about your book's potential. Schedule a complimentary 30-minute book launch brainstorming session at booklaunchbrainstorm.com. And today we have panelists who are going to share how they've used their books, not just as products, but to build their platform. Jenn Grace is the author of Publish Your Purpose, a step-by-step guide to write, publish, and grow your big idea. She's the founder of Publish Your Purpose, a hybrid publisher for authors who are thought leaders, experts in their fields, and visionaries paving the way to social change. She's also one of our BizBook PubHub premier partners. Nikki Green wrote The Chameleon Mindset, Creative Ways to Embrace Change and Build Mental Resilience to Transform Your Career and Life, an engaging, research-based guide that helps you adapt with confidence using creative strategies and interactive exercises for lasting personal and professional growth. Rob Swymer wrote Surrender to Your Adversity, a powerful, heartfelt guide to embracing life's challenges with courage and grace. It shows how surrendering to what you can't control can lead to growth, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose. Please join me in welcoming Jenn, Nikki, and Rob. Welcome. Nikki, actually, Jenn, I'm going to come over to you first. Jenn's an old hand at this. So, Jenn, you know that I always kick off trying to get a better sense of the audience for each of the books that you have. So who did you write this book for? Who do you have in mind? And welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me once again. I appreciate it. So my book, Publish Your Purpose, is meant for primarily first-time authors who have something really important to share and they don't know how to access the information in order to get into the right mindset, in order to know how to write it, and then also know how to actually publish it. So it is anyone in that realm.
You and I play in a similar space right now. As you know, as we're doing this, I'm in the middle of writing my fourth book. It's actually handed off to the editor, so I have to stop touching it. And it's called Don't Just Hit Publish, Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews and Revenue. And we both have that mindset that there's more to these books, right, than just hitting publish. And I love the work you're doing with your authors and your hybrid publishing space. So Nikki, let's come over to you and talk about who you had in mind for your book.
Yeah, Chameleon Mindset is really designed for people that may be in some sort of life transition. Maybe that's career, maybe they want to start a business, or maybe there's something going on deeper in their personal life. But it's not just one of those regular mindset books where you sit there and read it, but it actually has interactive exercises that you can do by yourself, or you can also do with your friends and family to bring them along on the journey.
I love the idea that there's a discussion space sort of built in, so a small group community. Do you include discussion questions? Is it sort of part of the experience?
Yeah, there's also interactive lessons. So there's QR codes that'll actually lead you to videos. So it's not just a, one size fits all, but you can actually go and listen to the module and then you have a deeper experience through that.
Multimedia. Very cool. I love the creativity. Rob, how about you? Who's the audience you had in mind for your book?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. Very grateful for having the time here. My audience is all ages. I wrote the book for all ages that are going through any kind of adversity or challenges in their life, passing on the lessons I learned through my journey and my transformation of life. And that's what it's all about. I'm just passing on some of my lessons learned and trying to give everybody a chance to not just survive any adversity, but thrive after their adversity.
I love it. I love it. And welcome. So this is a new space for us to get to know more about you. So I'm really glad that Marva Baller suggested that you connect with us and join this campaign. Give a wave if you've written more than one book. So is any of the authors here written more than one book? Oh, wow. We've got a couple here. All right. So since Jenn and Nikki both raised their hand, I'm going to go back to Rob. Rob, here's the question I have for you, and then we'll go to them. How did you move past the inner voice? You know, everyone who goes to write a book, especially the first time, has this inner voice sending some kind of message. Well, one, what was the message that you kept hearing? And how did you, keep going and write and publish this book and bring it out into the world?
Yeah, I love that question because my journey is part of my story. I grew up with severe learning disabilities, and I think I've only read a few books in my lifetime. So the fact that I wrote one that ultimately became a bestseller is really comical in some ways. But I had to really break through those limited beliefs. I had to really, really work on myself and my personal growth. And it took me, it took me a long time. I went into myself for over a decade and really studied why am I here? What's my purpose here? And I was in London during COVID, and you can only watch so much Netflix. so that's when it sort of born. It just became sort of it became born out of me wanting to give back and to serve and to tell my story and maybe help somebody that's going through some stuff in their life.
I'm glad that the reasons for writing overcame the resistance to writing. Yeah. That's wonderful because we need to hear your story. So for Nikki, I'm curious whether your approach to between like the first book and subsequent books change. Oftentimes for the first book, the idea of what we think of as a successful metric, it's hitting number one. It's, I don't know, there's a number of sales we're expecting. I don't know, there's something that we have a dream of, but then you have this reality, you realize like A, how this works, B, what's possible. So what changed about how you approached, and how many books do you have, I guess is the other question, but when you got to the next book and the next book, like what changed about how you approached that?
Yeah, I just published my 7th book, so it's been quite a roller coaster in just 5 years. My first book was kind of an accident. Really, my business was based on motivational speaking and, wanting to get out there. And everyone said, oh, well, you need a platform. So someone needs to know what you're going to talk about. So a book is a great idea. And that was really just kind of these journals and milestone moments in my life. And it was basically a memoir. And then I realized, well, people need more than a memoir. But it was such an important journey to learn how the self-publishing business works. And then I could evolve from there. And so I just learned how to better do the whole craft of writing. I joined a writing group here in Chicago. And then I got better, not only at the writing, but what's the purpose and what is it actually going to do for my business, not just be something I sell from the stage.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how that's not the first thing we think about when we're first writing, but you get more strategic as you go along. Also, 7 books in 5 years. I can't let that pass. Like, what's driving you to keep creating like this?
Absolutely loved it. I didn't think at first because my first book was so deep. There were so many really important stories and milestones. And I was like, man, that felt kind of rough to tell those. I don't want to do that again. And then I realized I could find the silver lining in these and really help my clients and potential clients through some of those difficult times in their life as well. So it became sort of therapeutic for me. Also, my writing group here in Chicago is awesome. They always have stuff going on. So virtual, in person, and now you have a community of people to support you through that creative process.
That last piece you just said is something I really want to emphasize because I think so many people start out this process alone and staring at a blank page. Yeah. And they talk themselves out of it. the who am I to write this book, which is an excellent question, but can also be a hard one, can really make you kind of stop if you don't have a community of people who are supporting you and saying, no, you have a story to tell. And I can almost feel like Rob's taking notes right now because he's like listening to what you did 5 years ago. And he's like, yes, I'm a speaker. I want to tell my story. I'm writing a book. Like, what's next? What's next? Speaking of what's next, Jenn, you've been on the trajectory for quite a while, and you're not just an author, but you're also a publisher. So you've seen a lot of authors go through this, this journey. How does it change, like between how people first think about a book and then what they learn subsequently?
I think Nikki kind of started touching on it, where I think when you're doing your first book, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of mystery, whether you're self-publishing, traditional, hybrid, I don't even think it matters how you're publishing. There's a lot of unknowns. And I think once you get into your second, your third, I'm on my 8th right now. So as we kind of move our way through, we start to think, wow, how can I be more intentional and how can I be more strategic with how I'm reaching that individual reader and how that individual reader can then come out of my book and onto my website or into some other area of life that whether it's on a stage or wherever it may be. And so I think that as we kind of grow as writers, we start to kind of put away a little bit of the stress of I'm not good enough. Who am I to write this? Like we get a little bit of confidence, and then I think it kind of carries through.
I mean, it definitely happened for me. I did not identify, still really don't, as a writer, and I am working on my 4th book, so clearly I know how to write, but my feelings about it have changed. I'm curious what metrics people could be looking at differently. Like when we were talking about earlier, hitting number 1, which we can debunk as being like the number 1 focus. But as you get more strategic, what are some of those things that you think authors could put energy into that would help them get a great book, but also connect with that ideal reader?
I think it comes down to the business goals. So if I look at my book, the Publisher Purpose book, I have a whole chapter. Chapter 2 is all about goals. So it's personal goals, business goals, professional goals. And if we look at how we're defining success, it is all completely dependent on what your goals are, followed by what your business model is. And so if you have clarity on those 2 things, you can really put together a strategy that kind of goes in the right direction. Because if and Robbie, like you and I both have many opinions on bestsellers. And so when we look at a bestseller, is that actually going to serve me best? Like, do my clients actually care about that metric? The answer might be yes for some people, might be no for other people. And it's a matter of kind of like really sitting with that versus listening to somebody that you hear on a podcast or a friend's like, oh my God, you wrote a book, you should do this thing. So instead of just doing the thing that someone's suggesting that you do, slow down and say, does this actually align with what my vision is for how I'm serving people?
I love this. And, just so we can spell it out for the listeners who are hearing us talk about number 1 bestseller, I've hit number 1 30 times across my first 3 books across 4 countries, and not a single dime has ended up in my bank account because of it. And I know people who are selling campaigns to hit number 1 that cost real money. So those things don't add up to me. I see hitting number 1 as a byproduct of a solid, strategic, thoughtful launch that sells books to the people that you want to have reading your books, which is why I focus so much on the launch list and all of that. But these other metrics, this idea of like, what are your goals? What's going to move the needle for your audience, for your clients? What will they care about? And, use that as a guiding light, as opposed to, people selling you, every new author has to do blank. And then you're like, oh, I mean, honestly, one of the other things that comes up, and I'm curious what other people have heard, Nikki, maybe you've heard this too. You got to have an author website. And you're like, for every book, could you imagine? So, Nikki, do you just have one site that kind of brings everyone into focus about what you offer so that they can discover you through different channels? Like, how have you marketed? Because you have so many books. Like, how do you bring them together into one kind of one space?
Yeah, well, especially because I do both fiction and nonfiction. So there becomes this very eclectic mix. And part of that is the message that we can be anything we want to be. You don't have to follow some formula. So I have a general website where people can find out information about my coaching services. They can listen to my podcast for free, or they can buy a book and do something else. So a one size fits all is much better because it allows them to choose the adventure of where they want to interact with you. So I don't have an individual site for all books.
Could you imagine? It's a lot, just overhead. Hey, Rob, coming back to you as a newer author, before you started down this path, when you were just kind of getting started, you probably had some sense of what you thought was important to you, the metrics that you were going to keep an eye on. And then now you've been an author and you have the book. What changed? Like, what did you initially think? Oh, these things have to happen. And now you're like, wow, these other things happen. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And by the way, I feel like such an underachiever. I have one book, but I'm among some great authors, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I think my journey was very discombobulated. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. Like Jenn mentioned earlier, I was just getting into the book business, if you will. And it is a business. We all kind of know that. You mentioned that a little bit. That, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's a pay for play, and it's like it got really confusing for me. So what I really did at the beginning was focus on getting my message out there and to serve and to help. I just had that mindset. And really what I wanted to do was just give back. And by doing that, I wanted to make sure that I got the book into as many hands as possible. So what I did what I did to do that at the beginning was, and I'm still doing it now, I'm not taking a dime from the book and royalties. I'm giving all that money to charity for mental health. So every quarter we kind of pick a charity, and what any royalties I get, we give back to mental health charities that help, teenagers or adults or veterans. So I tried to just do that. I said, look, I don't know if I'll ever be, on a list or in the list or whatever, but I wanted to, this was kind of it was a purpose for me to give back and to serve and to hopefully help some people, right, with my story. And then it sort of switched, because as I retired from corporate recently and started to say, I'd really love to get back on stage and spread this message as a keynote speaker. Then it kind of switched to where, okay, now I really need to use this and leverage the book as, as the platform for some credibility. And and it was a little bit self-serving, but I tried to get away from that, just to say, look, I just wanted to be successful in some way. So I used that, that bestseller author, and I got a TEDx, and then it sort of went from there. And I think that new authors, you sort of have to let the universe take you where it's going to take you. You don't really know. If you're brand new, it's like, you don't have 8 books, you have 1 book. No one knows who you are. I'm not a celebrity. No one knows my name. So it's more like, just get out there. Don't get it perfect. Just get it started and start to serve and give back with your message. And that's sort of what I did. And it sort of kind of evolved into what I'm doing now, which is traveling all around the world speaking and, springboarding off this book. It was crazy. And then
Amazing.
it went from there. So you just have to kind of, you kind of have to go with it, I mean,
awesome. I love this story, because I think this is an arc that is familiar to anyone who's experienced having a book go out and do well. And that's probably the hope that a lot of authors have who are, getting ready to hit publish, or maybe their book just came out. And there's a few things you said. One is very much about service. You wanted this, you had a lot of purpose behind it. You wanted this to reach people. So the fact that you were giving the money away, so it wasn't about that. But no. I think, we have to be creative about how to get this book into people's hands, and then tell the story related to it. And yes, then it led to a TEDx, and so it's just like a lot of things that are around the corner that as new authors we can't see. So being in a community, this is what I loved about Nikki talking about her community in Chicago, is being in a community of writers helps you start to see some possible milestones that you couldn't have seen for yourself, because someone else gets a TEDx, someone else gets on a stage, someone else sells a bulk order of books, and you're like, how did you do that? They're like, let me walk you through what I did. I don't know if it'll work for you, but let's try it. One of the things that I find really, really important, and Jenn, I am so proud of you, because we finally get to say on air that you crossed the 100 review mark. Oh, wow. Jenn's been on the show many times. She was like, just shy. And I feel like we kept pushing it for you. So written reviews, which are different than the ratings, and the ratings are the stars 1 through 5, that you do not have to buy a book and you don't have to write anything in order to leave a rating. So there are, unfortunately, a lot of authors who have hundreds of ratings and maybe a dozen reviews. And it's just like, what does that mean? It's not really doesn't really work as much in your favor for the algorithm, and it doesn't actually have as much meaning when you dig in a little bit. But what Jenn has is 103 total ratings, and 101 of those have a written review. So few things to shout out for her. One, the ratio between 103 and 101 means she ran a campaign to get written reviews. The recency of the reviews, which means they're coming in on a regular basis. Her most recent one is March 31st. A bunch of them came in March. So that's kind of when this all happened. But this is not a new book. In fact, what year did this book come out?
October of 23.
Yeah. So it's been out for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And it's still, yeah. So that, initially you had a lot of reviews. I mean, it wasn't like you started from zero, but it's easier to get reviews out of the gate than it is to get those last 12. So can you tell us a little bit about why do you focus on reviews? How did you get your initial boost? Because you clearly got a lot of them, and like right from the start. And then what was your experience trying to get those last 12?
God, the last handful, I'll start there. The last handful I feel like is like pulling teeth, because when you're launching your book, and Robbie, you're the pro at this, but when you're launching your book, everyone is excited for you. I think maybe the excitement wanes just a tad as I'm working on my 8th book. So maybe the excitement might not be as much fanfare as the first book, but the more excitement there is, you have the momentum that builds. And you can ask people like, hey, do you want to be part of my street team? Do you want to be part of my community? Help me get this book in the hands of other people. And so I did put together a street team. And I think there was like maybe 26 people in it. Like I really didn't want to put a ton of time and effort into trying to sort this out. But I had 26 really awesome, dedicated people who did all of the actions I asked. They bought the book when I asked them to buy it. I gave them, we rewarded them for it. We had like private calls, and it really worked because what I have noticed, if I look at where authors find me, it's now two ways. It's one where it's someone that I've worked with in some capacity, or someone my company's worked with in some capacity. He's like, oh my God, you have to work with them. And then that's a kind of like, it's an instant referral. It's word of mouth. It's a no-brainer. But now the second is the book. And I just started working with somebody who, through who knows what promotional effort, they found the book. I placed the proper calls to action within it. And then they sent in the inquiry to us, and they're like, yeah, we read the book. Like, we're ready to go. And so it wasn't even a conversation. It was just, they knew the kind of methodology. But I do think that the reviews are the important piece here, because if you go to a book and there's only one review on it, there are plenty of people, myself included, and I know Robbie used the example of toilet paper, where people do leave reviews on everything. And I will not purchase anything that has less than 4 stars and doesn't have at least 50 reviews. I don't care what the product is. And so it's with books, I think it's even more important. So I did put a big concerted effort, and I think I was at 36. I was missing 36 for, I don't even know how long, very long time. And then I was missing the 12 to get to the finish line. And so finally we're here.
Finally, we're here. I mean,
So
it's a
much
big
work.
deal. And so here's a big benefit of this for you, for those who are wondering, like, what's important about 100 other than it looks cool, right? Around the 100 mark, the exact algorithm, none of us know. It could be as low as 83, but definitely by 100. Amazon starts pushing your book out in different ways that you cannot purchase. And these are not ads that you can pay for, or placement that you can pay for, but there's like a hot section in categories that you can get placed in. I've had my book emailed as a featured book in an email saying, because you bought these other books, you'll want this. And people forward me these emails, and I'm like, what? Like, how did that happen? And it's because I'd hit the 100 mark. So, and I think the credibility really goes up. Now, I'm talking about authors like us who don't have 80,000, 120,000 people on an email list. Like, we're not, internet famous people. So when we're comparing, we're looking at us, and 50 is kind of the barometer that I use. I love that you just reiterated that, Jen. That really pushes you above everyone else. But even getting 20 written reviews. So I'm going to come over to Rob, because Rob, you got, let's see. I was just looking at yours, 39 ratings and 29 reviews. So the fact that you had over 20 tells me you put some real effort into this. How did you know, as a first-time author, to even focus on getting written reviews?
I didn't. I didn't know how to focus on that. I was really stumbling through all this. What I did, though, is I hired a PR person, and it was just for like 3 months to kind of, and that's what they specialized in. So they would tell me, okay, go on social media, do a video, let's make sure that people know about this. And of course, my giving back to mental health helped as well, making sure people knew that, look, when you're buying the book, you're not giving me money, right? And that was the whole point. So I did a lot of social media posts, did a lot of videos saying, next week we're going to launch, and I launched it on a particular day when it was the day I met my late wife on a blind date. It was April 22nd. So I had purpose on even the date that I launched it. So it all it came together, and I didn't have the metrics. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a seminar I went to say, hey, how do you become a best-selling author? I didn't have any of the algorithms or anything like that. I just sort of did it bootstrap, and it was I was very lucky and grateful to get there.
So I noticed that you had a review that just came in February after a gap, because when it first came out, you had a big flurry. Yeah. I will say that making an effort, particularly around these campaigns. So I have you all lower your book prices a little earlier than the campaign starts, to not make me and my team lose our minds, but also because it's an advantage for you to get even 2, 3, 4, 5 more reviews in that time period. And you can use the campaign as the excuse. Hey, I'm part of this campaign. Can I get you to follow through in that thing you said you were going to do a year ago? Like, before the campaign starts. I still got a couple weeks. I'll drop the price for you. So if you just get new reviews every few months like that, it actually helps with the algorithm as far as landing on the search results page on Amazon. So it's quantity reviews, quality or positivity and quality of reviews, recency, and then verified reviews, which means that the person reviewing bought the book on Amazon specifically. And so I think it works for the algorithm, but it's like a more weighted piece. But even for those of us that are savvy, that are looking at the reviews, and we can see, oh, these are we know they're verified. There has been studies that more than 90% of buyers do check reviews before making a purchase. And what Jenn alluded to earlier about toilet paper, and I wrote about this in my book, Jenn, I went and researched it even more. There are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of reviews for toilet paper brands on Amazon.com and Target.com. So there are certain people that will review everything, but I think it's still a very small percentage, because no one I've yet met has copped to being one of the people who wrote a review for toilet paper. So yes, I'm sure you're out there. If that's you, you'll have to reach out, because we needed to know that. So fascinating. Nikki, I'm going to shift gears a little bit for you, because you've had so many different books, and the ones that are more business focused, that are leading to the speaking that you do and that work. How do you think about the marketing? What's been your most effective marketing strategy that actually led to more books either being sold or given to the right audience? I will loosen that to be not just for money, because sometimes, distributing them may actually be to your benefit. But what's helped you get your message out there in a big way?
One of the most important things I did was really borrowing other people's audiences. And so we kind of talked about that a little bit, as Rob was saying, but there are so many authors I know now that are also in this business, and they may have books about different things. And at some point, they're also going to need to borrow my audience to be able to promote theirs. So it's been a really cool thing that different people that I know will offer bonuses if they buy my book. So it's my book, but they're also kind of getting something out of it. And it's been really fun, because then there's all these new collaborations and people that come into my chameleon community that I wouldn't maybe have reached otherwise through a natural, organic way. So it's been pretty fun to meet those other authors, and then vice versa, help them when they promote their books. And
can you give an example, Nikki, of the kinds of collaborations or bonuses that they're is this someone says, yes, I wrote a review, and now they get access to a whole bonus page? How are you structuring that? What kind of bonuses?
Yeah, so we do a lead off of, so I still have my main site, but we do have a book page that's just for those bonuses. And so they can submit the receipt to us, let us know that they've purchased, and then it acts as a lead magnet generator. And so from there, I can send them off to different people's lead magnets. Sometimes it's something as simple as a checklist. Sometimes it's actually a session with them to maybe do Reiki healing or things that I have no some realm of doing. But it's really interesting to see that crossover, because I work at a pivot of both life and business transitions. I can really broaden the spectrum of things that I can offer to people, and then they can choose the one that's most appealing to them to get.
I'm having an epiphany on air, Nikki. Okay, so I've been wanting to do another giveaway, but I keep putting it off because it's I just too many things that I'm spinning plates for right now. And I kept thinking oh yeah, that'd be a good thing to do. And I had an idea for it. But yeah, hey, Jenn, I'm going to be in touch. Because if I ask the hub partners to they've already submitted bizbookpubhub.com. Almost every hub partner listed some kind of downloadable, thing, a gift. Some just did a 30-minute call, but the ones who have a tangible, download, me organizing those into a giveaway page where it's all their links. And if people, basically opt into my bonus content, they also get access to that. And that kind of spreads the love. And since I'm really trying to serve people who often don't have a book yet, I'm trying to be supportive. I know that, my content can be beneficial if you're maybe launching a TEDx or a podcast or a program. It's specifically about books, but it could be extrapolated. But I want to really just help more people write books, and I want to promote the hub. So this could be a really interesting way to do that. So thank you for the idea, Nikki. And I'm as I'm saying it, I'm and I think I already have all the information I need. I just need to get people to say, yeah, I want to be part of that. This is very cool. Jenn, earlier you were talking about the pipeline between your book and your offer. And I think, you did this so succinctly. if people are reading your book and they think, oh, I need this, how do they find you? And what's the next thing they can do with you for free or to pay you? Like, how do they connect those dots?
It's an interesting question because Nikki started saying this too, where she was basically saying, like, kind of like give people an option of what makes sense for them. And that's what we do as well. And so we have more content than anyone could possibly ever need. I have content enough for 10 businesses. It's just something that we've always done. And so in the book itself, at the end of every chapter, because I have grow in the subtitle of the book. So it's grow your big idea is the end of it. And so at the end of every chapter, it's a grow further moment. And it's beautifully designed because it's in full color. I had to like be, really up the level here since I am a publisher. And on those grow further pages, there's a specific call to action. So in the writing section, it's all writing calls to action. So it's like, hey, join our 5-day publisher purpose author lab, which is a 5-day completely free automated email sequence that goes out, has a video that talks about how to define your purpose. How do you know what impact you're trying to make? How do you define what your goals are? And so if someone's in that space, they can go there. Or if they're like, I need a little motivation and accountability, they can go to our 30-day writing challenge. Or if they want to know more about the publishing process, they want to know how much things cost, they can download our book cost blueprint. So there's different things. And those are only just a couple. There's many more. But what those then do is that they then download that thing. Now they're on the mailing list and all of the different sequences cross-pollinate to each other. So if you are on the writing sequence, now it's like, hey, here's this thing about marketing. Here's this thing about publishing. And it's all self-selective. So we're not forcing anyone into a list. You're on one. But if you want to access other information, it's all available. It was very time consuming to construct, but it is a masterpiece at this point.
I mean, oh my gosh, I want to get Rob's reaction. Rob, you don't even have to say anything. I'm going to say it for you.
Yeah,
That's
go
not
ahead.
a place you start, Rob.
No, I am blown away. I'm so impressed. And I just, I'm overwhelmed and impressed at the same time. But Jenn, congrats. And I'm in good company here. Can only hope to be. So my story is a bit different, though. It really is, because I'm coming off a 42-year career in high tech, and I retired. And now really my book is a springboard for me to get on stage and do keynotes for company kickoffs or wellness days or those kinds of things. And that's really 90% of my business. So I'm here as an author. I don't have 7 streams or 12 streams of income. I don't have free giveaways and all this. I do have some giveaways, but the reality is my goal in my goal for all this has been to get on the stage and to spread this message to the masses and to make sure that I can serve more people.
Rob, have you had any success doing bulk orders as a speaker as part of like the negotiation of a fee or the benefits that you might receive?
Absolutely. It happens quite often where I'll go in and speak to a company and they'll buy my book, and then afterwards I'll sign the book for them. And so it's really kind of it's a great lead in. And that's why it's so important to really do the work to become known as an author. At least the book has some kind of following. You may not make that list. That's okay. But when you write the book, you then do become sort of an expert in that subject, and you've got credibility. So I did use that, and I'll send books out as gifts to event managers or C-level executives and say, here's the book. I'd love to serve your team in some way in the future. Please let me know if you need my skill set, and bam, they'll bring me in.
It sounds like you really are treating your book as a business asset, and you're leveraging it in lots of ways. I don't think the hitting number one is going to factor one way or the other to what you're talking about.
Right.
And if you steadily get a few more reviews a few times a year and you inch towards that 50 pretty quickly, I think it's just going to be that better. Like just that more, there's a lot of books, particularly every topic there's challenges because there's a zillion books in that topic. Yeah. Yours is special. We want people to find it. We want people to know other people valued it and took some messages away from it. So, I think that there's this way in which we think bigger from the book. Sometimes people come in too narrowly thinking about numbers of copies sold or something like that. Everything you're describing, Rob, is the answer to the because I'm an author blank happened, right? In fact, Nikki, I'd love to hear your answer to that question. Because you're really interesting because you do cross genres. There's kind of a natural, I think you see it more than even I do, a Venn diagram of the topics that you're writing about, regardless of genre. There's a through line. But how would you answer the because I'm an author, this thing was possible? Oh, I apologize. There we go.
Because I'm an author, I can reach more people, and I can reach more people in different ways. Sometimes people don't want to read nonfiction books. It's too heavy and it's not really for them. It feels like school, and maybe they didn't like that, or they have their own mindset issues with that. But I can reach them through my fiction books, and the fiction books have those same central themes about overcoming adversity and how do you step up to new challenges? How do you lean on your community? But they have the same call to action to come to visit my website, to check out on social media or my podcast, so that they can have a next level, like free, really reach out to see me as a person, not just like some esoteric name on a website or on Amazon. And then they get that deeper connection to keep building that relationship. So no matter whether it's fiction or nonfiction, there's always a path towards leading towards how can I help you transform to do what you want to do that's exciting for your life.
And the strategic thought behind all of that, and that you didn't feel limited or put in a box to only write one kind of book, that you were like, there's a lot of ways for people to hear my message. I've been meeting a lot more people who are writing fables, business fables. So that's also been really interesting to say, like, there's a way to tell this story in this interesting format. So it's very clever, and I think it gets people's attention. Jenn, I'm curious how you would answer that question on behalf of your clients that you've worked with. Like, is there anything that one of your authors was able to do because as a first-time author, they suddenly had a different kind of platform or a different kind of recognition of their expertise that comes to mind?
I think there's like a million different examples, and they're all kind of like the same idea of what Nikki was just basically saying. I think what a book does that no other marketing tool can do is it really positions you as the thought leader. And what I love about what Rob is talking about, because he is a perfect case study, because if we work with two types of people, it's one person who's been doing the same thing over and over again for a long time. They're deep experts. And people are like, why don't you have a book? And so they're kind of like begrudgingly pursuing this process. And then finally, they kind of get a little inspiration. Or it's someone who's been in a space for a really long time, and they're an expert in that space, and they're retiring, or they don't want to be there anymore. And so they're using the book as a jumping off point for something new. And so in those cases, the book is the thing that catapults you a lot faster past other people who might be the sleeping competition. Because if Rob and I are writing about the exact same thing, I've been in the business for 40 years and he's just on the scene, but I don't have a book and he does, there's going to be an inherent value placed on him as the author, even if it's not warranted, which we see happen quite frequently, where there's really no merit to it. But there's this perception that people have. It's a perception that conference organizers have when they're hiring speakers. It's the perception of the internal person at an organization who's responsible for bringing people in for trainings and consulting and whatnot. And so I have dozens and dozens of examples of authors doing exactly what Rob has done. So I feel like let's just focus on Rob's brilliance here and knowing how to do it, even despite you saying that like you didn't really know what you were doing. It sounds like you do. So kudos to you, Rob.
Yeah, kudos to you. I learned a lot of this from the National Speakers Association. I've been part of it for over a decade. And early on, there was this, like you said, that like, you need a book, you need a book. It was like a message drummed into my head over and over again. But there weren't as many people saying what to do with the book. Or there was even this like world where people sort of say, well, it's your first book, don't worry too much about it. And it's like, what? So finding the right community of people who get what you're trying to achieve and can give you feedback, advice, reflection, questions, even to help you achieve that outcome, not the outcome they necessarily got, because you may not want that outcome, but are really like giving you space to craft your own way forward. And whether that's a peer group, mentors, mastermind, paying coaches, or finding a writing group, like there's a lot of ways to do it, but I just think don't do it by yourself. And Rob, let's let you jump in.
Yeah, I just want to jump in because I was very, very fortunate. The Marva Baylor, who brought me here today, is my mentor and my best friend in business, and life as well. And she actually went on the journey with me, or I went on the journey with her. She started writing her book a few months prior to me, and then I came up sort of behind. So what was really cool about that, and I want to kind of jump into the community and sort of the fellowship of authors, and because we're all, it's like no one ever says no. How can I help? How can I help? And so she sort of went through this blazing trail as well. So we used the same publisher, we used the same PR person. We had trust around that. It was really important. So I didn't have to seek out as a newbie on the scene, as Jenn said, and say, who do I go to? How do I, where do I go for this? And how can I trust this person that they're actually going to do this? So that was so valuable for me, and that I had this loving person in my life that kind of brought me up in the ranks and said, okay, here, I just did this, and here, don't do that, and here's where you want to go, and here's who you want to call. And, she just, we love each other, and she just really kind of took me under her wing and said, here's how you do it. And it just meant everything to me, because I wasn't making those crazy mistakes. And we all know it's the pay to play business in this business is crazy. You can put money down for things that just don't have any value, and you just think you're doing the right thing, and you get sucked into it. And then later $50,000 later, you're like, I got nothing for that.
Unfortunately, that do you hear those stories? And often by the time they go to a reputable publisher to try to fix it, they have no money.
Right.
And it's like, what do I do now? I love that. When you were describing Marva and your relationship, I was picturing like right after a snowstorm, she's a snowplow, like, heavy weather, but let's clear the path and just like follow me, just watch the taillights, and I'll get you through to the other side of this. Most first-time authors try too hard to do it on their own for a variety of reasons. Even just having that one person who's a little bit knowledgeable to give you some guidelines to like point you in different directions, and steer you away from the more the predatory people. I'm like, the word publisher should mean something. If they don't ask you any questions about what your goals are, they're a printer. Okay. Like, that's the difference. And I think, I know that Jenn, you have a list of questions to talk to a publisher about. That's one of the resources you share at the bizbookpubhub.com. You find people like Jenn, and you find out some really trusted people that I have vetted that are all now starting to support and work with each other. It's just a place where entrepreneurs can go to start that journey. And we have free virtual networking events. There's another way to kind of build community. As we wrap up here, I'd love advice that you would give an entrepreneur who is writing a book to help them grow their business as a speaker, coach, consultant. I'm going to come to Rob, and then Nikki, and then Jenn. So Rob, what you've already said a lot. You can re-emphasize something you've already said, but what's that advice you'd share?
I would say that don't worry about getting it perfect, just get it started. I think that I say that saying a lot. I used to say it in business a lot. And I think it really dictated how I got through my journey. It's like, if you mentioned this, the blank paper, I could have stared at that blank paper for years. And I think it's just get it started. Don't worry about getting it perfect. And then hire people around you that you trust that will help you through that journey. And don't be afraid to ask for help. That'd be my advice.
That's awesome. Appreciate that. Nikki, what advice would you share?
Yeah, write constantly, consistently. You never know where the story is going to come from. And even just recording audio notes while you're driving in the car, that effort of getting into a regular habit, you will get better at the craft. And then I probably have 5 more books or more in the hopper. So it's ready to put together once I'm ready to focus and go through that editing process. But don't give up. Just keep the writing flowing, and then you'll get deeper and deeper and more creative and be able to help more people.
Love this. And Jenn, what about you?
I would say I love the idea of just get started, right? Like, let's just stop getting in our own way and just get started, and take the time and energy to think about what the purpose of this is. Because when it gets really rough, and it will, whether it's in the editing process, the writing process, or the publishing process, you can always go back to that anchor point of, oh, that's right, this is why I'm doing this thing.
I love that. Nikki, I'm going to ask you to share how people can find you and follow your work. What are the best ways for people to connect with you?
Yeah, the NikkiGreen360.com has everything you want to be able to reach me, social media, podcast, and more.
Fantastic. By the way, all the links that are being mentioned, plus their book links, their social links, will all be available in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Jenn, how about you? How can people find you and follow your work?
The easiest way is publishyourpurpose.com.
Fantastic. And Rob, how about you?
Yeah, easy. It's robswymer.com. Everything is there. How to get a hold of me. And yeah.
Brilliant. Folks, at bizbookpubhub.com, you're going to find the show notes for all the shows that are coming out every Tuesday and Thursday. You're going to find folks like Jenn and me who are helping supporting entrepreneurs through their author journey from writing, editing, publishing to marketing, a free virtual networking event every month, the Kindle cross promotion campaigns, an invitation to join my launch team, at least for the time being that it's available, and so much more. So go over to bizbookpubhub.com. On panel, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Robbie.
Thank you for having me, Robbie.